You have the power to be better than anybody's graphic card.
I could play this at potato resolution and it would
Yes.
still be fine.
I don't rely on this. Is a puny things called a graphic card.
Yeah,
I
it's
know
like...
there's someone there. Hi everyone, and welcome back to Access Gaming, the show where accessibility meets gaming. I'm your host Arevya, and today I am here with Sightless Kombat.
Hello!
Hi.
Absolutely pleasure to be here. Amazing to be here. I am Sightless Kombat, Accessible Gaming Officer for RNIB, Accessibility Consultant, Content Creator, and Gamer Without Sight. When I say that, I mean I have absolutely no sight whatsoever, never have. So if anybody then says, oh, you're a blind gamer, that's technically true, but I use the term gamer without sight as legal blindness can and often does include usable and or residual vision, which I've never had and is often just shortened to being blind. So that always creates a fair amount of confusion, hence the use of the term gamer without sight, or GWS, as I sometimes shorten it down to as well.
Yeah, because I learned about you in that conversation. I saw it on Twitter for the first time, a conversation about being blind is a spectrum. And
Yep.
there is a big difference from being blind and having, having no sight. That most people who call themselves blind or are blind legally have some kind of sight left.
Is 93% of blind people can see something. That's the number that I've often seen quoted, and it always is interesting when people say, oh, this other blind gamer's been able to do it, and I'm like, yeah, they've got usable vision.
Yeah, so that shocked me, and that is like why I wanted to have a talk with you. I'm so glad you could stop by. I'm so glad we could have this interview because you have learned me so much. One of the things I really enjoy talking to different people is that I cannot learn things that I don't have a personal experience with. So I rely on other people to tell me how they feel about things, what they need, what they like, their barriers are, what accessibility needs they have, which is why it's so important to talk to different people with different experience. But let's get down to business and ask what I think is the reason most people clicked on this video, which is going to be, how can you play games if you are blind?
Well, I mean, most people would sometimes think, how can you do anything if you're blind?
Yeah.
Arguably,
Yeah.
whether that's the fun question I always enjoy is, how have you typed this reply if you can't see? And I'm like,
No.
touch typing, screen reader. Screen readers, for anybody who's unfamiliar, are pieces of software that render on-screen text, controls, and other elements when labeled correctly as synthesized speech and Braille. And incidentally, I actually have a few little notes here of the questions, and we're actually using this, which is a Braille display.
It's so cool.
Which is showing off the script so you can see it moving there. But you know, so that's kind of the hardware side of it, and hardware does figure into how I play games as well. But also, so things like the Titan 2, I have props here. So things like the Titan 2, which is a small little rectangular box with a couple of USB ports on the front, sort of USB-A ports.
Yeah.
And then on the back, it's got little micro USB things that feed into the console or platform that I'm using, and also allow, when set up in a certain way, for simultaneous control over the internet via a piece of software. So we've gone from hardware to software now.
Oh, yeah.
Called Parsec. And Parsec is primarily designed for, you know, remote work and online gaming and stuff. But if you rig it up in a certain way with the Titan 2, you can actually have two people playing the same game as each other. So playing as one character, essentially, through an online connection. So basically, if you know this show, you'll probably know of Copilot and that kind of thing on the Xbox platform side by now. And it's basically Copilot, which is a local feature. So two people in the same room, but in an online format. But of course, you know, those kinds of things can only get you so far, and having sighted assistance, you know, is not the most ideal thing for everybody. I've worked with a lot of great collaborators over the years to play games that otherwise wouldn't be playable. But I also use things like audio cues and, you know, a lot of practice as well sometimes. And also other accessibility features like navigation assist, aim assist, traversal, you know, sort of assistance things. So like you see in God of War Ragnarok or The Last of Us Part 2, Part 1, Dead Space remake as well. That's an interesting one. All sorts of other things that the game might have. Menu narration being a massive one as well. When it's not included, that's a big hit to my ability to get through a game without needing assistance, or using things like optical character recognition, which takes a picture of the screen and extracts text from it, or attempts to.
Oh,
Attempts to being the operative word, because
yeah.
it can be slightly usable at best and an incomprehensible mess of garbage at worst.
Yeah, I've tried like two games for that is supposed to mods of games that is supposed to help people that cannot see what's happening on the screen. I actually tried Stardew Valley,
Oh
which was really,
yeah.
really cool. Yeah, they had like
Yeah.
what they had done is that they made a click sound every time you walked your character, and to which direction made different click sounds.
Yeah,
So that
I must actually confess, I've not actually fully gone into Stardew yet. I have
Are you missing out?
no, because I'm waiting for updates
Oh
to the
yeah.
mod. So,
Yeah.
but I do intend to cover that on my channel. So, and Stardew is one of the games that I do intend to cover once the next version of all the mods and things appear.
Yeah, it's really cool because I, as somebody who has sight, did not think that how were they supposed to do that. In a way, they sort of uh, made it possibly to map out everything you see on the screen without being reliant on vision. And the same, I remember when I tried to put on Last of Us, and I tried to put on narrating through the what do you call it? Like the film.
Audio description.
Yeah, audio description in like the scenes in between, like when it's just films.
Cinematics.
Yeah. So it's in cinematics and it's an audio description. And for those in the audience who don't know what that is, that means that somebody is just telling you what we who sees on the screen, and somebody is telling that, so that if you don't look at the screen, you still get the information you need to get. And it was brilliant.
Yeah, it is great.
Yeah, the fun part was that I hadn't even, because it was Ellie, she gave like a look to someone, and I hadn't realized that she did that. And then I heard the audio description. I was just like, oh, no. Oh my God, that's so true. Yeah.
It is so good. I mean, I know an instance, because I know people who watch AD, not necessarily because I'm in the room, but because it's useful for them. So there's a film called Prometheus that most of you sci-fi fans will probably know. It's in the Alien franchise, and there's a pivotal plot element in that happens relatively subtly. And the only reason the people around me knew what was going on and knew that it happened was because the audio description kicked in. So,
yep.
But it's been used in theatre for decades. It's been used, theatre, film, other industries, ads as well for a number of years, for decades in certain cases. And only now is it really starting to get into video games. So Stories of Blossom, I had a hand in that. I'm in the credits for that.
Oh, that's
which is
cool.
A lot of fun. Point and click sort of cozy adventure, which is very cool indeed. Not usually my style of game, but definitely a sort of chill vibe to go with. But that has audio description kind of baked into it. Brock the Investigator, a similar sort of point and click, but this time in a kind of cyberpunk dystopian sort of thing. That has AD as well. There's even games like Sequence Storm, which is a rhythm racing game developed a number of years back, that does have AD as a part of the dialogue sequences, essentially. So through text to speech, that's relayed. A lot of the time it's done through human voice, but text to speech in those kinds of almost visual novel or arcadey style games can work as well.
Because I do think people get a bit shocked of how many games is actually accessible for people without sight at all. I think the last one I heard about or saw was that Fosa Motorsport, which is a racing game. People don't know that. Now is completely accessible for people who are blind and without sight. But what are your favorite games to play?
Ooh, I mean, I'm personally a big fan of the blocking, parrying, hitting enemies in the face kind of a game. Those of you that know me well will know that I'm a big God of War fan. I completed with sighted assistance from the wonderful Janissary, who now works at Descriptive Video Works, the audio description vendor. But I completed it with assistance from her, went through doing all of the optional bosses. So yes, I defeated Sigrun, the Valkyrie Queen, for God of War 2018, which is no easy
Yes,
task.
no, let's go. That is really impressive.
But you'll be more surprised to learn that I actually went through and did that a second time on New Game Plus.
No, that's illegal.
Insert the Star Wars meme where Palpatine just goes, "I will make it legal." But yeah, in terms of that, so I'm a big fan of combat-oriented stuff. I've been enjoying Forza as a kind of casually competitive thing. I'm not into necessarily all the tuning aspects of it. Doing all the convoluted tracks on Korea. I just enjoy speeding around an oval and trying to beat other people's times. That's
Yeah,
fun enough for me.
the
Um,
same when
yeah,
I
it's
play
good,
games like that.
and there will be we're looking at maybe doing a stream where we race each other in Forza in
Yes,
motorsport in the future. So keep an eye and an ear out for that because that should be a lot of fun.
keep an eye out on
Uh,
that. That would be really, really fun.
absolute carnage is what's going to ensue, I don't doubt. Yeah, but I love the Veil, Shadow of the Crown. That's a fun. It's sort of it's halfway between a mainstream and an audio game, really, because it is an audio game in the sense that you work with sound to get anywhere, because the abstract graphics that are employed don't actually really help you when you've got sight to work with. But by the same token, it's a mainstream experience in the sense that it's on, Xbox as a console. It's on PC as well, so it's not just delegated to Windows, as might be the stereotype. I also enjoy, sort of rhythm games. So Sequence Storm, that's a fun one. Um, I'm trying to think what else now. There's so many games that I've enjoyed playing. Even with sighted assistance. So Jedi Survivor. I'm a massive Star Wars fan. I went
Yeah.
out to LA last year for the Xbox Game Showcase, and I visited Galaxy's Edge while I was there.
Oh,
So
that's so cool. That is
built
so
a
cool.
built a lightsaber and a droid in the same day, which was a lot of
Oh
fun.
my God, that's so cool.
Might have to show that on a future stream again.
Oh,
Yes, I've played Jedi Survivor, Fallen Order, done some Dead Space, done some Horizon. Full disclosure, I worked on Forbidden West. I'm in the credits for that as well. Got to go out to Guerrilla Games a few years ago, which was amazing to do. And they're off camera, but I do have the collector's statues because that outside of the games, I do also collect tons of merch. If I turn slightly, you can see the
yeah.
the wall of stuff behind me.
Oh, yes.
We call it the wall of stuff on stream just because there is so much stuff you can't sort of say it's just pop vinyls or it's just other merch. There's Sea of Thieves stuff on there, Gears stuff there. So Sea of Thieves I played with a sighted crew, which is a lot of fun. Diablo 4 I've kind of been in and out of. Looking forward to the navigation assist coming to that. There's all sorts of fun things that I've enjoyed or I'm looking forward to. I just want to see more games be accessible
Yeah.
without needing to say to a person, "Can you come and help me with this?"
Oh, yes.
Or
I
whatever
did
it is.
this TikTok about when I got the Xbox, no, the PlayStation 5 Access controller.
Yeah,
I did
yeah,
this, I did this TikTok where I had I talked about the importance because that box, for people who haven't seen it, the box is to be opened with sort of like hooks on each side,
yeah,
so you can open them with really limited mobility,
yeah. I got
which is
a.
so cool.
I mean, it is great because they started that with the Xbox adaptive controller.
Yes,
Really, I mean, I actually reviewed. I have both of those as review units. It's not normally the sort of thing I'd cover, but
but it
I
is
I
cool,
had.
and
Yeah,
it makes show that it's so important to be independent, to be able to be independent doing things, because it is annoying if you always have to ask. Of course,
yes,
it's part of having disability, is often part of having to ask for help, and you just have to learn
yeah.
about that. But at the same time, it's like, I just want to play a game. I
Yeah,
don't
it's
want to
like I
talk
just
to
want to. Well, I mean, my way of putting it to people is I want to be able to play the same games as everyone else on the hardest settings.
yeah,
So like, give me God of War and God of War Ragnarok. I've actually been going through with assistance where needed, which is
yeah,
mostly just navigation, and then the combat is all me. Other than occasional instances where there's certain things you have to hit that the targeting won't lock onto, that kind of thing. But I've gone through pretty much the entire game on Give Me God of War, just because of the accessibility of it,
that's so
and
cool.
which is amazing. I've still got one or two more big fights left to do, but those will likely be streamed when I get around to it. But even with the access controller, again, it's not the sort of thing that directly benefits me, but it was interesting trying to rig it up to play God of War,
Yeah,
just to see whether I could even do it. And I sort of got it, but it was there were definitely limitations to that, and other devices I've looked at over the years where
Yeah.
you could see that, like, if you try and push its limits, you can see where the cracks are.
I
But
played with the Xbox adaptive controller and I set it up on stream and I set it up the first time after Christmas and first time since the big update and nothing worked. That
oh
like
no,
in general, the Xbox adaptive controller, I
oh,
love Xbox. I like Xbox, mwah. But like it is wonky to set up. Even when I had sight, like I nearly strangled the controller going like, oh, work.
that's the thing though. Like when accessibility related tech works, it can work really well. But when it
Yes.
doesn't work or it
No.
doesn't exist, it's like, oh my word. So like, say for instance, you have a game that's fully accessible. I put this out as a tweet fairly recently. If you have a game that's got menu narration and a game that's got um, sort of full gameplay accessibility, if it doesn't have menu narration, how are you going to set the game up in the first place?
Yes.
And if it doesn't have full gameplay accessibility, how are you going to play even after you've set it up?
Yes.
Or how are you going to progress? I think was my wording.
And it is sort of bad, but I feel like if something is supposed to be accessible and then it doesn't work because something is wrong, like I have my cognitive problems sometimes, so I have cognitive barriers I meet, and then something is so complicated that my brain just stops working because of when I have pain flare-ups. That is just what happens with my brain, and like when that happens, it's like being kicked when you're lying down because this is supposed to work. This is supposed to be for me. And now I was excited to use it. And now I was excited to game.
Mm.
And now it doesn't work. And I get pissy,
For lack of a better term.
for
I
lack of
mean,
a better term.
the common thing for me is with navigation. Like, say a game's got a really good combat engine, and then the navigation doesn't work, or it
Oh,
only half works, or you realize that the game's leading you around in circles. It's like
oh
like you
my
you
God.
suddenly realize after you've been wandering around for like 2 minutes, you're like, is this taking me round in circles again? Oh, for goodness sake!
It
But
has to be annoying
yeah,
though when
oh,
you
it is.
miss. Yeah, you miss
But
like a parry or you miss something, and it's just like it's not your fault, it's the
yeah,
game's fault.
missing parries. Don't even get me started on missing parries. Because there's a big misunderstanding, arguably, that if you just stick an audio cue in, it's going to help. The audio cue has to be like calibrated to work well.
Yes. Yes.
So if the audio cue happens at the same instant every time for one particular move and you can parry it, that's fine. But if it changes based on, I don't know, like a key frame of the move, or when the attack shows up for a sighted player, let's say,
Yeah.
then it's going to make it even harder. And you're like, how am I meant to dodge that? Because the unblockable cue didn't play in time or whatever.
Yeah. It's
All
like it.
sorts of stuff. But yeah, I mean, also as well, a big, I mean, on the topic of misunderstandings, sometimes, the idea of, just adding menu narration in works. That's adding menu narration in is brilliant.
Yep.
But the fact of the matter is, sometimes the menu narration is just too slow. So I've got a short out on YouTube that shows the speeds I generally read at.
Yeah.
And the fun part of that is, a lot of people may think, oh, this is fine. When a screen reader talks at this speed and you have to listen for about 5 minutes while it reads, it's like, while it reads 20 things, 476 other things. And it's like, and then it will read the important information like, you are about to go over a ledge. Or, well, not quite like that, but you know what I mean? It'll be
Yeah.
like, whatever the key information is, it'll be like, it'll read a bunch of other stuff first and then that. So having it be able to be customized in terms of menu narration so that it can read at 200 kilometers an hour and just be like, all of these things, all that, all are here and all of that. And
But I
yeah,
can somewhat understand it because like correlations to I have started watching all my TikToks on like 2 times speed.
yeah,
And like I need to do that now. So like because if you watch TikTok and you push onto your like the edge of your phone, it just speeds it up to twice as fast. And I've started watching all my TikToks in twice speed, which makes my like fiance, when I listen to it out loud, he's just like, what the flying monkeys are you listening to? Because he just says
yeah. It's
and
like it's like
yeah,
you
it is so
understand
annoying.
it, but they don't. Yeah,
Yeah, because I have like the
yeah,
context, and then when I started now, like open up my TikTok on my computer, and I starts like, because you can't do that. At least I haven't found it on my computer. And I'm just like, oh, you guys talk so slow. Come to the point.
I think a great example of that is actually with one of my co-pilots, DB. And he said to me once, how do you understand the chat? Because he could hear the chat coming through Parsec. He was like, how do you understand this when it's going that fast? I'm like, years of practice and being
Yes.
around screen readers. But then he got to a point where he could actually understand it as
Yeah.
well. And I
That's
was
so
like,
cool.
yay. But then there's also the flip side. Well, not the flip side. There's also the gameplay side of that, where people have said to me, through playing alongside you as your co-pilot, I am now seeing the game in slow motion because like as in I can see stuff before it's going to happen. And
Yeah.
I'm like, well, that's amazing that I've
That's
been
so
able to help
cool.
you do that. So like, you'll hear of people, you know, unintentionally being better at parries than they were when they started the game.
Okay,
I'm
that's
like,
cool.
I'm like, wow, I didn't realize I could help with that. That's great. Coming back to misunderstandings again, just very briefly, and kind of going into barriers as well. One of the things is if, they say, oh, we've got high contrast mode, we've got colorblind filters,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
constituting. I mean, that's great for those who can use it, but those filters aren't the be all end all solution. You have to work other stuff in as well.
Yeah, because that was a question I was going to ask you. Like when it comes to game, and they say like, "Oh yeah, we are accessible for people who are blind," but you
Yeah,
still cannot play the games. Like, does that happen a lot?
I think it's arguably happening less. It's mostly just because people aren't saying, oh, this game's fully blind accessible. They're mostly just saying, here's the features we've got,
Yeah. Okay.
which
Yeah.
is okay. That's
Yeah.
understandable. If they then have the elements in there that I can use to my advantage, so menu narration, aim assist, navigational stuff, and aim assist for the record doesn't have to be auto targeting aiming. That can be, if you look at Sea of Thieves, I actually had a hand in this feature as well. The what's called an audio aim assist in game, and I had a very shall we say, interesting YouTube comment on on that as to the bar that may or may not be setting for people wrongfully discussed, shall we say.
Yeah.
But in terms of that, it's basically an audio cue set that allows you to aim based on pan and pitch at
Yeah.
your enemies.
Oh, cool.
And it was funny. There's actually video footage of me doing a test voyage, and me, Mina, and Paddy, my regular crew, we did a test voyage when the patch came out. And I was like, I've waited 5 years to do this. I'm standing on the deck of my ship with a sniper rifle, so an eye of reach in hand, and I turn and I aim, take the shot, and a skelly just goes. And I'm like, yes, go ahead.
Yes. Oh, that's so cool.
And that's the thing. Accessibility features can do so much. Even the smallest feature can make the most massive difference. Like even stuff that isn't directly an accessibility feature, so haptics in Jedi Fallen Order, those allowed me to sort of time my wall runs when I was doing it with sighted assistance. So
Cool.
if it was say 4 wall runs back to back and I needed to time when to jump off the end of each one, I'd feel the haptics sort of increasing in intensity. So I knew I could try and make the jump. And the other half of it was down to navigation as well.
But when we're talking about that, do you think do you have any advantages with being blind in gaming?
I don't know. I'm not really sure. Like maybe the advantage of being able to hear stuff as you like sort of in advance of everybody else. So I'll be going around a corner and it'll just be like, oh, there's a thing there. And they're like, no, there isn't. Oh, actually, that reminds me of a funny story. So I was playing Doom. Yeah, Doom of all things, as in 2016 Doom, not like 1990s Doom, which incidentally does have an accessibility mod, which I've tried
Oh, that's
various
cool.
iterations of over the years. I've not quite really got my head around it, but it's been updated since I last looked. But 2016, the Doom reboot, I was
Hmm.
playing that with sighted assistants, and so via co-pilot, so two people in the same room, and we were walking along, we were fighting our way through enemies as you do, and I'm like, there's one behind us, and my co-pilot turns to me and says, no, there isn't, and I'm like, there's one behind us, and they say, no, I can see it, there isn't, and I'm like, there is one behind us, And at which point, my co-pilot turns round, and lo and behold, giant, big, scary demon face goes, "Bruh." And
Yeah.
I'm like, I told you.
I told you,
I
listen to
told you
me.
there was a thing there. But equally, of course, sometimes I'll be hearing things and it won't be anything at all. So we'll be wandering through in Dead Space, and I'm like, oh God, what is that? Is that just ambience?
Oh, yeah.
It is. Fine, it is ambience. Okay, right. Just take a breath, keep calm. And then, of course, a necromorph just says, "Bah!" And it's like, oh
Yeah.
God, where did you come from? So
It's like,
it's a double-edged sword, really.
yeah, you have the power to be better than anybody's graphic card. You're just
But
like, I don't rely on this is a puny things called a graphic card.
yeah,
I
it's
know
like
there's someone there.
it's like I could play this at potato resolution and it would
Yes.
still be fine. Uh,
Still
you,
perfect game for me.
it would be really funny if they just decided to make a game that had, the highest quality sound design for mainstream, specs, let's say. So like a fully accessible, graphically designed game that then has, deliberately low quality graphics, but like the highest quality soundtrack and a way, of course, for players who can't hear the audio to access it as well. Because that's the other thing. If you're going to make games accessible to multiple disabilities, you should factor in the other side of the proverbial coin. So,
Yeah.
if you're making it accessible to a game without sight, there are ways to make it accessible to players who are hard of hearing or deaf
Yeah.
as well. You can do it. It's not impossible. That's
Yeah, it's not an either or.
fun. Yeah, you can do both. It's it takes time, it takes budget, it takes resources, but what we want to see is games that are playable by as many people as possible. Like I've been thinking about what games I could play alongside you or against
Yeah.
you or both.
Yep.
But there aren't that many. And
No.
that's kind of the thing that shocks people, I think. The fact
And
that there's probably on two hands you could probably count maybe more, but you know what I mean?
yeah.
You would need very few sets of hands to count the number of games that are fully playable,
And it
I
is
would
sort
say.
of one thing that is, I get a bit annoyed about that is that I can understand that, like, when you make it accessible for one set of people or one disability, but if you sort of make them not be able to play it with other people, gaming is such an important part of at least children and teenagers' social circle. And it's really important that we don't exclude, like, if we are going to make it accessible, it should also be inclusive.
I mean, exactly. If you don't, what is it? If you don't intentionally include, you unintentionally exclude is a
Oh,
great
that's a
one.
good saying. Yeah, that's a
I
good
can't
one.
take credit for that, but I've heard it at various conferences over the years.
Yeah, but that's a
And
good one.
no, it is good as well. And there's also the slightly morbid, for lack of a better term, idea that we are all temporarily able-bodied
Yeah.
as well, which is, ooh,
I love saying that because it always makes people go, they get so shocked. It's just like, yeah, but we all just like temporary able-bodied, and people go like, no. And then I
and
start
then they're
thinking
like,
about their own
oh,
mortality, and I go like, no.
and then
And
it's like,
then,
yeah, it goes from no to oh no.
yeah.
Yeah. And the thing is as well though, like with certain types of games, there's easy stuff that you can do, relatively speaking. So most games could benefit from menu narration. I know menu narration isn't easy to implement, but if you can manage to get a version of it in there, that can help a lot of people as well. Partly because it's not just menus, it's things like tutorials and that as well.
Yeah.
Where if you are far away from the screen, you can't necessarily see it that well because you're, I don't know, on a couch or whatever, you're just looking at it casually, but you still want that information. You
Yeah,
don't
the
want to
cut
have to
curb
be
effect.
you don't want to have to be, I'll just use my hand as a sort of fake screen here. You don't want to have to be like this, sort
Yes.
of hand in front of you, screen in front of your face like that, squished up against it. And equally with, controls and things, Copilot, being able to do that without having to be squished together on the same controller is great as well. So there's all sorts of little things that can be looked at, investigated, taken from other games. Because Last of Us 2, that's what it did. It took a load of, I mean, it did other things of its own as well, but a lot of the way it can be summarized, really, I would argue, is that it integrated things into a single cohesive package that had all been done or mostly been done by other things. So audio games had learn game sounds menu decades before a mainstream game did it, but it
Yeah.
added in an audio glossary. It had, there was navigational assists even in the earliest Gears of War game, technically, because you could follow your co-op partner around via holding Y when you were near them, and it would take you through all the corridors. And that feature that was in the first game, then evolved into Dead Space, into the Resident Evil franchise, at least from what I've heard. I've not really played one of the latter Resident Evils that has it, but there are games that can be traced back long before Last of Us 2 did it,
Yeah.
that act as an influence. And having all those things in one cohesive package is then a bar to set, not just to reach, but to surpass.
Yeah.
And that's what we want to see.
And it was like, as you said, like something added for someone can help a lot of people. Like I don't necessarily need things to be read out to me, but
No.
due to me having dyslexia, it is such a comfort to have it there, because then I can know that I'm not missing any information, or I can know that I am getting things correct, like names and stuff, which I really struggle with. It's so embarrassing, but I struggle so much with names due to that.
No, it's good. I mean, I appreciate it.
Yeah, like it's so, I don't think a lot of devs, or in general people who work with making things, understand how many people they're actually helping, even though they just look at one specific case. All of us who need things, either it is for accessibility or just for comfort, will start using it if we can. People,
oh yeah,
people are comfort animal. We like that. So yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, even with fighting games as well, because so for those of you that don't know me, I started out really sort of looking at fighting games. So Killer Instinct was a big game for me for many years. Arguably still is on a casual level. It would be interesting to see how we'd be able to set that up with like an adaptive controller to do like sort of macros and stuff.
Yeah, because how much, like how is fighting games? Because they are often on a 2D screen. Are they more accessible due to that?
Well, yes, they are when they're in stereo, and that's kind of a key difference as well. So if you're unfamiliar with the importance of stereo, so if I'm on the left and you've got a character on the right, and you throw a fireball from one to the other, really it should travel. So if you look at Killer Instinct, there's a great example of that with Jago, who's like pretty much the poster boy for KI, and you throw a fireball, you can hear it go along, left to right.
Yeah.
And you'll then be able to tell, okay, my opponent is at full screen or whatever. You can kind of use those as a distance measure, but also, of course, there's stuff like footsteps and other cues as well that you can use to work with that. As well as, of course, the announcer just go, just like, triple combo, ultra combo, whatever, like yelling out, shadow counter, and you're like, oh God. So even stuff, or just stage ultra, and you're like, oh no.
Yeah.
So cool. But they can be more accessible. It's really just a matter of when developers, publishers, companies realize that they can be done. So Killer Instinct didn't have what's called the HUD meter volume slider until pretty much until I suggested it, and then the devs took that suggestion to heart in 2015. And if you look at the footage from before and after, in terms of on my YouTube channel, I've got hundreds of Killer Instinct videos. Part of which show that transition. And Jukesy and I, so a fellow gamer with that site, and we played against each other, and we knew it immediately was different. And that's just because that information, so that information specifically is that, how close you are to dropping your combo, which is kind of Killer Instinct's bread and butter. You knew how close you were to dropping it once that slider had been introduced. So you could end your combos optimally and get damage out of it. And it was such a big difference. And that's what I mean, like relatively small addition that makes the game so much fun. The only thing that's missing from that title is menu narration. As of now with the update. And it's good to see games like Mortal Kombat 1, Street Fighter 6 doing what they can. Mortal Kombat 1 is arguably the more accessible of the two because it's got audio description, full menu narration, at least from what I've seen, to varying degrees on various ports. But even so with that, like you've got the whole package there with Mortal Kombat 1 that then other games can learn from and adapt. Street Fighter 6, of course, came out before, but did in-match accessibility to an interesting degree as well. There's lots of sound cues. I got beta footage from that showing those off. But unfortunately, the menus aren't as accessible as they could be. So, yeah, it's an interesting discussion with fighting games. I'm not the biggest fan of the stereotype that, blind people only play fighting games. That's why I enjoy playing stuff outside of
Yeah,
that as well.
I can
But
see
I
that.
but I enjoy a good fighting game, to have those moments of, oh my word, you just, ow, you just hit me in the face and my head exploded, in terms of like Mortal Kombat stuff or whatever. And it's
They are
those
fun.
it's those fun moments of, oh my Lord, what was that combo? I don't even know how I did that. And you don't really get that in terms of other genres, really. But I
Yeah,
think, to your point you said earlier about about inclusion, the thing is, single player games are amazing in terms of accessibility. They can be,
hmm
when they're done right. And in terms of, if you look at, your Last of Us, your God of War, your Stories of Blossom, your whatever, and you look at those games for, ideas to work from. But multiplayer is really the next big battleground,
yeah,
because there's been discussions of, balancing accessibility features to be usable in multiplayer so that they can't be used as cheats.
yeah.
There's all sorts of stuff that's going on in terms of that discussion, and I'm looking forward to seeing what studios concerned primarily with multiplayer can do.
It's going to
You know,
be fun to
yeah,
see.
it's going to be interesting.
But we have talked a lot about you being a gamer and a content creator, but you are also an accessibility consultant. What do you actually help studios with?
Pretty much anything in terms of making their games. No, that might be too broad a statement. But essentially, I will go in, I will share my experiences with studios firsthand, in person, remotely. This just seems like I'm trying to shamelessly plug. I guess
I
that's what
asked
it
the
is, though.
question though.
Good point. Good point. But in terms of, so I will talk to studios, I will share my experiences. I've done presentations to studios, to conferences as well, where studios have been present. I was part of RNIB's Accessible Gaming Symposium. I chaired a panel there, which was a lot of fun. So I've done panels. I've done, demonstrations of games as well. Live play testing, for lack of a better word. So, consultancy based play testing, in the sense that,
Yeah,
game devs give me a build, I sit in front of them and I'm like, okay, so first problem is menu narration, there isn't any. Or first problem, this menu is cursor based. That's a big problem because, cursors are, you can't see the cursor as a gamer
yeah,
without sight, and you have no sense of where you are on the screen. So using D-pad navigation is easier. Or even just, in game, it's like, can I, is there a parry button? Yes, there is. Can I hit this? No, I can't, because the attacks aren't telegraphed. All sorts of little things that game developers sometimes, or not game developers, just people in general sometimes don't think of, which is always good fun. Being able to share all that firsthand, be transparent about it. But of
yeah,
course, I also help with, the social side. So if a game, that I've either worked on or I've seen has accessibility, I will try and, at the very least, I will look at it so then I can talk about it later with other people, or I will try and stream it as a part of that. So, for instance, as of the time of this recording, I'm going to be streaming with sighted assistance Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown.
oh, that's going to be good.
That's going to be a lot of fun because
Yeah,
I've already played part of it with local assistance. It's going to be fun to see how it works with Parsec as
that's
well
cool.
with that game. So, for instance, that as well. I've been a part of video content.
Yeah,
Um,
because that is
yeah.
why I asked the question, also because I know I have viewers and listeners who are disabled themselves and or are in the way of being getting more and more disabled but due to age. And
Hmm.
I want people to understand that your experience is valuable.
Yes.
Your lived experience is so valuable for people making content, that there is ways of getting small jobs, sometimes even bigger jobs in studios in the industry to actually just lend out your experience.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with that. But also, as well, the fact of the matter is that, one person's experience, there's not one experience for a gamer without sight, for instance.
Yeah,
So, say hypothetically, Jukesy and I were on the same project. The reason we would be on the same project is because we provide a different experience.
yeah,
So, I've played a load of X game and he's played a load of Y game, and that's fine because we will both have different stuff. Or even if we both played the same game, we will play it differently. So
yeah,
one person might brute force it with no sighted assistance because they really want to, or they have the capacity for, mental mapping, etc., that they can then utilize for that. I personally might not want to do that. I might just get sighted assistance so I can, in my own personal opinion, have fun with the game and enjoy without having to feel constantly stressed out and burnt out by trying to remember everything in terms of where to go. So it's important to know that even if you have the same circumstances as somebody else in terms of condition or challenges or however you want to put it, the fact of the matter is that there is value in that irrespective of other people's
Yes.
existence.
100%. Because I remember coming into this industry and I thought like I saw others and I was just like, two thoughts kept coming up all the time. And it was one, I'm not disabled, ill, or have big enough problems for my experience to be valuable. And two, but there is already somebody in the scene having sort of the same as I have. But what I've realized over time is that it is space for everyone because, like, as you say, two disabilities or two problems are not the same. We don't handle them the same. We don't look at it the same. And in the same way, when you have, in general, able-bodied QAs who just tests the games for like, just test to see if they can break the game so that they have multiple people doing that because multiple people will play the game multiple different ways. So
exactly.
it is space for us. We should take that space.
Or it should be a space for multiple people to exist on, the same projects in the same areas on, in collaboration with the same studios, etc. There's all sorts of discussions there, but I agree it's a good topic to keep raising and even just to boost morale, really, to remind people.
Get more people in.
Exactly. Get us all in because we all want to break your games.
Yes.
In the most accessible way possible.
Yes.
Speaking of accessible, though.
Yeah, I cannot have an interview with you without talking about Project Black Cat because I got to try that last time we saw each other. And do you want to tell everybody listening what that is?
I'll do my best. Granted, I am without my co-presenter from that talk. The wonderful Carrie from Rebellion.
Carrie!
She of the studio of Sniper Elite fame, amongst other things, which is also doing, interesting accessibility work for various disabilities.
We're going to put Carrie up on a screen. This is Carrie, amazing person. Go follow.
Indeed. Go say hello and give her all the accessibility, positivity, and all that.
Yeah.
But Project Black Cat is an interesting piece of game development that we're working on as a team. Carrie and I, because it's a vertical slice of a game. So it's not a full game, but it's showing off a bunch of mechanics, ideas, theories that we've put together, as a part of discussions that we've had and from other places as well to show that you can make, a game accessible with that site. So it will show various components that can then be implemented by other people. At least that's the working theory at the moment.
Yeah.
And the first part of that, because just to make it clear, it is not just this, but the first piece of Black Cat that we showed off at GAConf is actually what we called the Sightless Stealth System. That's not the complete game accurate name for it, but that's what we called it as part of the presentation. And the idea being, so stealth systems historically have relied on being able to see. I mean, I'm sure you can tell a story or two, Last of Us wise. I mean, have you got any funny stealth Last of Us stories in terms of your opening experience with the game? Because you were saying about it earlier.
No, but I do have a lot of them in Skyrim.
Oh, come on then. Give us one as an example.
Like how I love doing stealth in any game because I'm a big stealth fan. And like I have, but the best with doing stealth is when you can also cheese it.
Yes,
so you can just like stand somewhere and cheese someone to either believe you're not there or they like get caught in the graphics and you can just
come
like
over to you. And
you can just stand there and poke them, or the fact that you can put a bucket on people's head in Skyrim and then I can't see what you're doing, so you can just shiv them, and then if you stand there for like 5 minutes, in the end they will die, and it's just like yes.
It's like, well, you shouldn't have let me put that bucket on your head.
No, that's your fault.
Exactly. But the fun thing about Black Cat is that stealth systems historically have relied on being able to see where enemies are and being able to see their orientation to you.
Yeah.
In terms of whether they're facing you, whether they've got their backs turned. Now, Black Cat, in various discussions that Carrie and I had during putting this together, we figured it out. in terms of having what we termed as an auditory vision cone. So the idea being, you have two layers for an enemy. So there's a base layer that plays the whole time. So it's just like clothing rustling and various footsteps and whatnot. But what's the one thing that you would hear if an enemy was facing you? I'm going to pose that as a question.
I cannot, because I tried this and I cannot remember what it was.
Well, I'll enlighten you. It's the breathing.
That it was, yes.
So the idea being that you can tell when an enemy's facing you because they'll be breathing in your direction. Sounds slightly strange, but it works in practice when you have it, up in front of you as a playable prototype. So the point was that we set it up so that you have this one guard patrolling the end of a corridor. So he can't actually see you necessarily unless you're sort of in his eye line. But the idea being you can run up and you can, notice when he's not facing your way just because of that one thing. And you can then, stab him in the back and or whatever, stealth takedown and then take his stuff. So,
but it was so cool though, because like I got to try it at GSConf and it was cool because it was absolutely a way of me to having to try using different like impressions than what I'm used to. I couldn't rely on my eyes. I tried it without looking. And how hard that is, but also how much fun it can be. Because that was the thing. Yeah. It was really fun. It is I sometimes when I talk to people, they like scoff when I say like, yeah, but blind people game, and they scoff and just like, how can that be fun? And I'm just like, well, try it. It is actually a lot of fun.
I mean, yeah. I get you. I mean,
and it was so fun trying that game because I got all the same fun I get with normal when I game with Sight, is that I still got all the like, this is scary, this is hard.
You get the emotional stuff of, oh god, has he seen me? Nope, we're fine. Can we run up? Can we make? Yes, got it.
Yeah, and like I sat there with my headset. And I was just like, I wanted to scream because people around me start talking, and I was just like, Josh, don't you see? I'm trying to find him. I need to hear his breathing.
It's like I need to know where he is.
Yes.
But actually, a fun little side note about Black Cat as well. There's a piece that's used in the main menu of the prototype, which does have menu narration. For those of you that might be curious as to whether we got that working, we did, and that's part of the presentation that we discussed the trials and tribulations of getting that to work in game engines and whatnot. But the fun fact about the main menu music is I actually put that together. I composed it.
That's cool.
And I also, as a shameless plug of sorts, I also write the music that you hear on my streams as well. So the intro music, the break music when that's used, and the outro music as well.
Oh, that's so cool.
And I even do music streams in amongst my gaming ones as well. I've even, as of the time of this recording, I very recently did a stream arranging the main theme from Plants vs. Zombies for when I eventually stream the accessibility mod of that game.
Oh, that's cool. I like that.
Yeah. But Black Cat is a really cool project. I'm looking forward to seeing where we can take that in future with updates and things. There are, videos potentially planned for the future with that as well, and more mechanics and all sorts of fun things. I'm not going to try and overpromise and underdeliver, so I will stop talking about it. But rest assured, there will be a link in the YouTube description and wherever else this is to the information on Black Cat as well, if you want to have a look at it and keep abreast of developments.
Yes. Well, we have come to the end of the show. And is there anything you want to shout out or make the listeners aware of other than Black Cats before we go?
Of course. No, of course, other than Black Cat, given we've just done a whole segment on it. But yeah, I'd like to first, as part of my work with RNIB, which is essentially what I did before I joined, but with RNIB's backing, there's the Design for Every Gamer initiative, or DFEG. Which is RNIB's rallying cry across the industry to raise awareness of the need for increased and improved accessibility across the spectrum of sight loss, including for gamers without sight. And you can learn about that at rnib.in/design for every gamer. There will be a link to that in the description, of course, as well. And there are various sort of sub parts to that. So the player panel where you can sign up and in future be a part of opportunities and discussions and things with developers, hopefully all being well. And also as well, I will plug shamelessly my own
Yes, do that.
social
Where
media.
can people find you?
So you can find me at Sightless Kombat, so SIGHTLESSKOMBAT on Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, and various other places as well. And I have a Discord server where we organize all the streams, where we discuss anything from general gaming chit chat to 3D printing food and use of Mac computers. So, amongst other things, and music as well, interesting musical stuff that you might be listening to at the time, amongst various other, elements as well. And if you ever want to see see what's going on behind the scenes or
Yeah.
ask questions, suggest games that you want to see me cover, ideas for videos you want to see me do, any of that kind of stuff is always welcome because accessibility is a two-way dialogue, and
Yeah.
I'm always of course it's a two-way dialogue. Of course, dialogues are two-way technically, but in terms of that, I'm always happy to discuss ideas and share my experiences, perspective. And if you have an idea where you're like, can you do a run of this game with this stipulation? I'm like, yeah, go on then, or whatever. So always happy to entertain those wacky, interesting, or otherwise unthought of ideas.
Cool. Thank you so much for coming to my show. It has been wonderful having you here.
Oh, it's been an absolute pleasure to be here. I know we've been saying about this for a while, and who knows, there may even be a part 2 where we discuss other accessibility developments in the future.
Or maybe we are going to do some Twitch together, streaming.
Definitely.
We
That's
have
going
to
be
do
a
that.
lot of fun.
Yes. But everyone, thank you so much for being here today. Please go down and give this a huge like, subscribe if you want to do that. I will be back next video or next interview I will have will be with a blind game developer. So keep your eyes and ears out to when that will comes out. Thank you so much to Sightless Kombat for being here today. Thank you so much to everybody for listening. I will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.